You meet at the tavern. And if you play tabletop RPGs like me, that statement tells you something exciting is about to start. But have you ever wondered why a tavern? Why is this common trope so ubiquitous that the tavern seems to be the best start to any adventure? And why have taverns become the heart of the community? Can architecture create community? Or does it simply invite it? So for the past few years, I've been slowly building an imaginary city in my mind. Originally, it started as a setting for a D&D campaign I was running, but in my mind, it has taken on a life of its own. This is the city of Wynnhaven. I'll explore the city more, but today I really want to deep dive into the one building. The first building. The one nearly every D&D player encounters first. The tavern. Or inn. In this city we have both. But tavern, it just sounds cooler. This is the Hearthstone, and has become known as the working man's tavern. It's not quite in the city center, nor is it really near the docks, but it is on the main road, so there's always a ragtag group of denizens, all nights of the week. The first thing I always think about when designing public spaces is what's the first experience as you walk into the building? Do you walk into a group of tables mid-conversation, or do you walk into the bar and stare at the barkeep right in your face? I think of these things because often, when we think of community, it begins before you could even say hello, as you get your bearings and start to feel comfortable. You enter from the corner into a small foyer, and have a view of the seating area, allowing you to take in the full scene before committing. This works for me as a DM, so I can quickly set the vibe and also allow the players to engage with what they see and decide where to go. But it really does also work in real life. Allowing just a brief moment of pause for a few seconds to get your bearings first makes a big difference. A little thing like giving people enough space to arrive comfortably gives them the opportunity to decide to join the community. Another aspect of this tavern is the hierarchy as to the importance of the different elements. In this plan, the hearth is the largest and most focal point of the tavern. It's where the literal warmth of the building comes from, but also where the warmth of this community happens. People gather around the fire. Maybe a bard is humming a tune, and you know immediately, this is where the heart of the building is, because often, the community, you need a shared center of gravity. What's also important in this tavern is that it's not just one large, loud room. Along the edges, you find more private, quiet booth seating, because not everybody builds community the same way. Maybe they want more close relationships and deeper conversations. This gives opportunities for people to psychologically get away from the noise if they choose. And as a storyteller, it also offers moments for those intriguing adventure opportunities. One aspect I thought of early on for this design was also that this tavern probably wasn't built all at once, or even recently. It's probably added on to over the years as the city grew. Maybe it was just a bar and a hearth initially. Then as travelers came in and needed a place to stay, they added some rooms in the back. Maybe the bar grew over the years as more people showed up and they added a kitchen because they wanted to cook food. I really like the idea of there being truth into the history of the building that we don't hide, but we celebrate it instead. So now, it's time to really see what this tavern wants to be in the world of Wynnhaven. As I'm putting the walls together, I think of the person who may have actually built this. The tavern probably existed since the port city was founded. From a lore standpoint, there's a lot of stories of how the city is created and why it's called Wynnhaven, but that's another story for later. But anyways, these walls, they weren't always built for the final purpose. Maybe the original builder was the barkeep, and he'd probably want to make sure he has eyesight of the entire place as he was likely the only person there. He'd probably want the kitchen close to the bar so he can quickly get in and out to serve customers. Maybe he only had enough money for one fireplace, one room, one tiny kitchen, and everything else came later. As the building grew, they maybe added sleeping quarters for the inn. And maybe those got added to the back, so they still have access to the heart of the building, but still have some privacy. And maybe there's a steward who helps with just the inn portion of the building. After the walls and roof are in, and I make the place lived in, this is where I get a sense of how the community is actually made in this town. I don't think it was the walls and doors that the tavern added that made this a communal building. I think it has to do with the opportunities provided. Opportunities to gather as you see fit, not in a prescribed manner, telling you this is where you need to be, but giving you options and meeting you where you're at. If the heart of the building is the hearth, the bar is probably the opposite. You sit with your back turned to the crowd and face just one person, the keeper of the bar, the steward of the facility. Almost as if they're the only one you trust so much that you rely on them to tell you if you're safe. Every community needs someone who knows everyone's name and what's going on. And because of this steward, you can sit safely and still be a part of the ambiance while choosing to not participate in it. There's also something about sitting with your back turned to the chaos that builds intrigue. And as I model the custom hearth, I'm thinking of the stories and the crackle of the fire and the laughter that might happen surrounded by this central draw and the central gravity that's given to the building. And when you don't necessarily want to be a part of the activity, but definitely don't want your back turned, there's the booths on the perimeter. Close enough to see and hear the action, but secluded enough to not have to partake in it. This is where you go if you don't want to be heard, and maybe even don't want to be seen. Beyond just the bones of the building, this building needs some character, and that comes in the details. I could have stopped at the layout and used theater of the mind to describe the feeling, but I really wanted to live in this tavern to truly understand it. I spent more time custom modeling beams and furniture to really try to make it fit into this fantasy world than I did building walls and roofs. I think that's what's the missing piece for a lot of designs, even current modern designs, is we don't spend enough time thinking about the day-to-day uses of the spaces we design, and we're more interested in the big picture ideas. I often think that our role in architecture is to provide the spaces and options for the use, but really it's the end users who are the final decider on what that space should be. So as you arrive on the main road of Wynnhaven, you come across this weather-worn building, with the sounds of conversation and laughter emanating from the doors. As you enter, you're immediately greeted visually by the barkeep. The regulars sitting at the bar don't even turn around to acknowledge your presence. In the distance, you hear the crackling of logs in the large fireplace and the muffled sounds of a young bard recounting some far-fetched tale. Some of the patrons around him listen with rapt attention, while the others gaze away at the ceiling, waiting for this to be over. As you enter further into the Hearthstone Tavern, an intriguing character in the dark booth catches your eye. They're hunched over their ale and appear to be deeply reading the book in front of them. But the casual glances away towards you tell you they're paying more attention to you than the book. You make your way to the back and are greeted by a jovial innkeeper who gladly shows you the room options for the night. After setting your wares down in your room, you re-enter the tavern and you wonder, where should I go first? Taverns are the start of many adventures because it's usually the place for many different options and characters. The tavern works because it's one of the oldest examples of architecture creating conditions for community. A good tavern gives choices, a place to celebrate or a place to disappear. It's a place to meet strangers and a place where strangers may stop being strangers and become part of your adventure. Architecture, it doesn't just create the community. It gives people a place to find one. And any architecture and storytelling like this, they often go hand in hand. Sometimes a building can tell stories on its own, from its history and its lineage, but in the end, I think it's the people in the building making the best stories. And this is where Wynnhaven begins. I hope you like journeying with me on this adventure as I build out this world from my mind. This is a personal project for me, but I'd like to invite you to come along with me as I build it out and continue my adventures in Wynnhaven. Thanks for coming along. Remember, stay curious and design with intent.